What got me to realize something is shifting is when we had the backyards flood severely. You would thought we lived on a waterfront property, like lake. We lived on a lake. And my husband, I joked with him, I said, well, you always wanted to live on waterfront property. Now we have it.
With more than 1,000 miles of river and ocean front, Jacksonville's home to some prime waterfront real estate. It's beautiful right there, but those same waterways make the city uniquely vulnerable to sea level rise.
Sunny day flooding, it's basically when there's standing water in our streets or in our parks where there hasn't been a rain event.
I mean, I can think of so many areas around me where water sort of comes up from below, or well after sort of rain has subsided, it's all, flowed into the storm drains, it's all in our waterways. It still is sort of sitting there for a while.
I want to show you what's happening down here on Southampton. This is an area that always floods, and you can see now, and even though it's not raining, the road is still underwater, and it's going to remain like this for a good part of the day. And you can even see the water is bubbling in from the grates down on that end just because it's high tide. That's what they're dealing with.
I would say the sunny day flooding, we're definitely seeing around the expressways that were kind of built into the older city, as well as older low-lying neighborhoods just with aging water and sewer pipes that need to be replaced, but nobody has the money to replace them.
It's frustrating. Like today, it's not a hurricane, it's not a nor'easter, it's just a high tide. And anytime there's high tide, there tends to be water in the street. You don't want to have to step through puddles to get to your home.
As seas rise, the river is rising. And so water is actually coming into our infrastructure from the river, as well as trying to drain out. It's speeding up the demise of our current infrastructure just invisibly.
San Marco and Riverside are wealthier neighborhoods, right? Like there are some very expensive homes, very wealthy folks who live in those neighborhoods. And so we're talking about, potentially a lot of real estate value, right, that is affected by this sunny day flooding.
Actually, our state representative got in on this, and he kind of got the ball rolling, and the city council joined in on it. So they have stepped in, and they're going to install a valve at the end that will divert the water backing up to us. I can't wait. Get our yard back.
In this neighborhood, at least we have curb and gutter. We have storm drains. There's still many neighborhoods, especially in underserved communities, that still don't have storm drainage, their own septic tanks.
It's horrible to live right here, to be honest. I've called the city multiple times and I haven't gotten any answers.
The state of Florida has so many places, homes, and properties that are in land that should have never been allowed to be built on.
We need to move people off the water, but we need to do it in a way that's respectful of the people that live there. And I don't want to speak on behalf of the residents, but I know there's concern from the residents about being relocated.
The city put this flyer on his door, and it's basically soliciting them to see if they would consider selling their home and moving out to get away from that tidal flooding.
Kind of really boils down to the value of property, that like they're not buying out people with big estates. They're buying out the people with shotgun homes and tearing that stuff down. If you took my $50,000 house and destroyed it and gave me a check for $50,000 for everything else costs $150, I'm still out of luck on that one.
Resiliency begins with keeping water out of our neighborhoods.
A simple goal that committee chair Randy DeFore says will require a multi-billion-dollar commitment.
It costs billions to put areas in the condition we see it today. It's going to take billions to get them out of that, but we can't, put our head in the sand.
One of the most important things we can do is to really try and incorporate natural infrastructure and green infrastructure into already built out areas. So we talk about incorporating natural infrastructure and green infrastructure in new development. That should be, at this point, a given.
So what they want to do is actually just make this a natural barrier where the water will come in. It would be like a flood zone, and so no homes would be destroyed.
Just making changes to infrastructure in terms of hardening infrastructure and making it more, physically resilient, or implementing green infrastructure. Of course, that stuff is important, but it is, in my opinion, not a long-term solution. It's a short-term Band-Aid. Rick Scott was the governor of Florida between 2010 and 2018, and there were lots of reports that his unspoken rule was that nobody in any state agencies were able to even talk about climate change. And that's a very effective policy if you don't want it to be a topic of conversation, right?
When you've lived in an area over a course of 20 years and you see those changes, it just makes you realize how quickly sea level rise is threatening our community. You know, climate change and sea level rise issues are now, they're not something that we can put off any longer.
The only long-term solution, right, is to deal with the root cause of climate change, which is greenhouse gas emissions.
Well, maybe the earth is trying to tell us it's getting a little tired of being neglected. The earth is a living thing. So how much can it take?